Hey, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner. Before I get into today's video, I found a treasure. I was going through these old podcast episodes. One from January 2010. Yeah, I've been doing this a long time. But for some reason, I thought this intro was good. And I hadn't thought about it in years, but I'm going to play it for you now. You'll thank me in about 30 seconds. Here we go.
H, yeah, S, yeah, C, yeah,
Hey everybody, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner, and it's been a while since I've done
It's so cringy, that part. It's kind of fun, though. But then listen to the vocal.
Joe. I've started doing those more in the forums, answering questions.
I sound so young and little back then. Anyway, you can't even find that podcast anymore. If you go on iTunes, I think the podcast is still there. I haven't done it in a while. But I don't think those old episodes are still there. So that's my gift to you. But today, after embarrassing myself, we're going to talk about headphones, specifically a mistake you have to be careful not to make when it comes to choosing headphones, because I ran into this mistake and it made for an interesting, challenging experience. So let me tell you the story. So one of my VIP members hired me to come down to Houston to his studio to record his band. He had this sweet setup. So he owns a business that has a big warehouse, and they set up kind of an upstairs, sort of a loft room, like an actual room, kind of in the upstairs level of the warehouse, and huge, long room. And he had a bunch of cool gear in it, a lot of stuff that I use. So he had a Studio Live mixer from PreSonus. It's a big, long, like super long room. I'm talking like 100 feet long, maybe not, but I'm not good at estimating, but very long. But there's a drum kit set up, there's a bass rig, there's a percussion set up, there's a place for one guitarist, a place for another guitarist, a place for the keyboard, just all sorts of stuff, and then a whole mixing section as well. Lots of fun gear. It was a really fun experience. And each musician had their own box for setting up their own mix. So the Studio Live mixer from PreSonus, they make these Q-Mix boxes called the Ear Mix. That's it. So it's a box that connects via Ethernet. They all connect together to a central network connected to the mixer, and each person could set their own mix on their boxes. Anyway, that part's not important. What is important is that little box has the same sort of level meter on it, similar level meter to the Studio Live mixer, meaning I could walk by and see how loud things were going to the headphones, if that makes sense, the mix itself. That'll come back into play in just a minute. So we set up for this session. So I come in a day early, and we spend the whole afternoon into the evening just setting things up, wiring things up. We had to kind of incorporate the Studio Live, which was, I think, new, into the existing system that had like patch bays and a splitter to split things out, because they would rehearse there too. And when they rehearsed, they would use like monitors, stage wedges, side fills, and things like that, so they didn't have to all have headphones on. But obviously when we're recording, we want headphones on so we don't have speakers blasting and blaring in the room as much as possible. The problem was, when the musicians came the next day, we set everything up. Took forever. But we had it set up to where everybody had their own station, had their own set of headphones, and had their own little personal mix box. So we get started getting sound, setting levels, doing the whole getting prepped for the session thing. And things are going well. It's sounding okay. Occasionally people are saying, can you turn it up in my headphones? Turn it up in my headphones. I'm thinking, sure, that's fine. We get to where they're ready to record the first song. And as soon as we start recording, and it's a really fun band, they would do like a combination of originals and then some really cool like they had a couple of Santana songs that they did that were really fun. Oye como va, like stuff like that. Anyway, we get into the first song, and the way it's set up is I'm on the end of the room, like I'm facing you, you're the computer, and they're all that way. Drummer is kind of halfway down the room on the right. Bass player is just on the other side of him. They're pretty close together. And as soon as we start recording, like at the very beginning, the drummer's like, hey, I can't really hear the click. So I'm thinking, okay, so I do what I have to do to turn it up in his headphones. Even though he has his own control, I turn it up here to make sure he's got enough. He's starting to play the song and getting off the click pretty quickly, which is always scary. Because I've never worked with these musicians, so maybe he just can't play to a click, and we'll have to record without, which is fine. and maybe we did. We maybe killed the click and said, let's just not use a click. Made that executive decision. Everyone's there. We're talking like 8 members of the band or something crazy. So we everybody being there was a big deal. So we wanted to just get things rolling. So say, fine, let's kill the click. Let's just record without. And then they start recording the first song, and the bass player pretty quickly looks over and is going like this, pointing his headphones and pointing up, like, turn me up, turn me up. And so I'm doing that dance of, well, I can kind of turn him up here a little bit, and then I run over to his rig, and I turn up the bass channel on his little personal mixer, and I see on the meters there that the mixer's pegged, like he's getting all the volume, but he's still telling me he can't hear it, and I'm thinking, that doesn't make sense. So, we stop and start a bunch of times, and the drummer can't hear the bass player, and the keyboard player can't really hear his keyboards over the drums, and I'm just thinking, what's going on here? Like, I know what I'm doing, but no one can hear anything. So either all of these different individuals are deaf, and they weren't like 90-year-old men, so that wasn't it. Or something weird is going on here. And so I'm thinking maybe they just don't know how to set up their personal mixes. So I'm trying to teach them how to, turn everything down and then turn the actual headphone volume up. So you have just more general volume on tap, and then you can turn things up to your liking. And they're like, okay, cool, that's better, that's great. Yeah. Do. I can hear myself. Cool, let's go. Start recording. And he's like, I can't hear myself anymore. And at this point, I am flummoxed. I'm embarrassed. I mean, they flew this guy down from Nashville to come engineer a session. He can't even let the bass player hear what he's playing. You may have guessed what the problem is based on the name of this video. But the problem we finally figured out was the headphones themselves. These were, I believe it was it was Beyer Dynamic headphones. And I've never owned Beyer headphones. They've got the DT770, the DT990, I believe. Don't even remember which ones they were. But, you think about decent headphones for the studio are probably going to run you about $100 each. And so this guy had shelled out $800 or so on just headphones. So they were there. They were new. I think we opened some out of the packaging to get them set up for the session. But as it turns out, they make 2 sets of headphones, 2 different types. One is a closed back headphone that completely encloses the ear and blocks out external sounds. The other is an open backed headphone, which when you put it on, you still hear everything around you because it's open. And the reason for that is tends to be a better sounding headphone. It's great for mastering and mixing, for just listening critically. Because in closed back headphones, it's like a little room, right? A tiny room around your ear, and rooms cause a lot of issues. Frequencies bounce around, and it's not as accurate, right? So an open back headphone in general is a more accurate sounding headphone, which makes it great for mixing and mastering. Problem with open back headphones, as you can imagine, if I'm using an open back headphone and I'm playing bass, and while we're just sitting there and I hear myself. Soon as the drummer starts playing, what happens? I'm hearing the drums in the room because I've got these headphones it's basically I'm not wearing anything. So here's visual for you. I've got 2 sets of Sennheiser headphones. These are some of my favorites. This is the Sennheiser HD280 Pro. I've had these. I was probably wearing these headphones in that podcast intro I played for you at the beginning. I've had these forever. I've replaced the pads once because they wear out over time, but the headphones themselves are great. And you can buy the replacement things here. But these, A, they're really comfortable. B, they sound good. And C, they cover your ears really well. So right now I'm probably talking louder because I can't hear myself because these go completely around my big old ears and they create a bit of a seal. So I could still hear that snapping, but it's a lot quieter. It's attenuated to the point where what's coming out of the headphones is the primary thing that I hear. So if I wear these, and my buddy Tim is over there on the drum kit, by the way, you see drums and bass rig set up. There's music coming. If I put these on, I'm still going to hear the drums, right? I'm going to hear them in the room, but I'm going to hear like my guitar coming through there very clearly. Same idea as if we use like actual in-ear monitors that jam into your ear canal. That's blocking out the sounds in the room, so you just essentially hear what's on the mix. These are I've had these about as long as those. These are the Sennheiser HD650s. I don't know if they make these anymore. They make an HD600. I think they make a 550, but they're fairly expensive. I think these were like $500 when I bought them, but they sound phenomenal and they work really well. I use them a lot for mastering. And you probably can't see it super well, but see, it's got like all these little holes here. It's basically open. When I put these on, it still sounds like I'm in the room. It's a little quieter because I've got the foam around here just to make it comfortable, but the sides of this headphone are open to the public. So I can, and I don't understand the physics of it. I'm probably not explaining it right. But when I listen on both of these sound good. You can certainly mix on these too. But they tend to have, the low end isn't super space natural on these. It's also not supernatural. So it might seem hyped on these, and the upper mid-range sounds a little not super accurate on these. So you may not hear things as accurately on these, but these, on the other hand, sound very accurate. When I listen on these, I know I'm hearing exactly what's in the mix. And that's great when I'm sitting here in a room by myself mastering a project, because I can turn my speakers off, I can put these on, and I can listen, right? The room doesn't interact. I mean, there's lots of great benefits for having open back headphones. Problem is, can you guess? You don't want to have those open back headphones as your primary headphones for a big tracking session when you are in a room with things like guitar amps and drums. It makes for a nightmare experience. So, how did the story end? Well, when I finally realized they were open back headphones, like I put them on to listen to somebody's mix to be like, what are you talking about? You can't hear yourself. And it clicked right away. I said, oh, I'm hearing all the drums in the room. And then I looked at the headphones, and you couldn't even tell by looking at them. They weren't as obvious as these, but then I looked up the model number online, and sure enough, they're open back headphones. So the lesson here, boys and girls, is to know what headphones you're buying. And if you can only buy one set of headphones, I'd recommend getting a closed back pair. You can always get a second pair down the road, but this will work for recording, and you can use it for mixing, whereas those really are only good for mixing and mastering. The other kind of downside, even if you're saying, well, Joe, I don't record drums, I'm just recording me and my acoustic guitar, that's fine. These can be nice for that unless you start using something like a click track. Then guess what? The sound of the click in your headphones goes, and that sound just flies out of here and gets picked up by the microphone, which stinks, because then in your song, especially if it's just a simple guitar vocal or a fingerstyle guitar, you literally are listening to the guitar, but in the background you hear this sound, which is annoying. Closed back headphones don't completely solve that problem. You still have to be a little careful with how loud the click is in your headphones, but closed back headphones make that problem almost completely go away. And if you know what you're doing with the way you do these, like sometimes if I'm facing like this and the mic's over here, I'll pan the click to the left ear so it's a little farther away from the microphone itself. Little tricks like that can help. But you need closed back headphones. That's the point I'm trying to make here. So I talk a lot here on the channel about how the gear doesn't matter. Just use what you have to make great sounding music. And that's true. On that session down in Houston, we ended up just making it work. We may have turned on some of the monitors, like the wedges and the side fills, just to let the bass player hear himself. He was going in direct. I think we turned on his amp so he could hear himself. Problem solved. There's more bass amp bleed in the drum mics, but it didn't matter overall because we got a great performance. So in that sense, the fact that they were the wrong type of headphones didn't really matter, but it would have made the experience much better and much less frustrating if we had the right set of headphones to begin with. So while, yes, in one sense, the gear doesn't matter, just use what you have, in another sense, the gear matters, especially if you have the wrong gear, then you find yourself just banging your head against a wall over things that you shouldn't have to worry about. So if you want to see the gear that I recommend for a home studio, especially if you're starting out, head over to homestudiocorner.com/gear to check that out. Otherwise, if you're not subscribed already, please do so. Share this with a buddy. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.